Dear panelists of the IEO 2021, contestants, participants, organizers, so welcome to the next educational event by the IEO 2021. It is my pleasure to introduce you with Manuel Arellano. He's going to give a lecture on income risk inequality. So there are many dimensions to economic inequality, including inequalities of consumption, income, and wealth. Mr. Arellano will argue that another dimension that is less known, but also very relevant, especially for the young, is inequality of income risk or of income insecurity. He will explain how individual income risk can be convincingly measured using administrative big data and machine learning techniques. Mr. Arellano will examine how income risk varies with age, income, and over the business cycle. So without further ado, I will give the word to Manuel Arellano from SIMFI, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. So it's a pleasure to be part of the International Economics Olympiad. This is, I'm sure, first time for participants, but it's also first time for me as well. So let me first share my presentation. Here it is. Let me make it full screen. Okay. What as said, I'm going to tell you about income risk and inequality of income risk. My talk is based on recent research with a number of people. One is Stéphane Bonhomme, a professor at the University of Chicago, Micol de Vera, PhD student at SEMFI in Madrid, Laura Ospido, a senior economist at the research department of Bank of Spain, and Sichi Wei, also a PhD student at SEMFI. And okay, so what is that are we to discuss? First, a word about economic inequality. Studies of economic inequality, they seek to measure differences in well-being across people, and there are many differences to economic inequality. Mainly inequalities of consumption, income, wealth. Income and wealth measure the resources individuals have to meet their needs. Income as a flow, wealth as stock of assets that people may have accumulated, while consumption is the most direct measure of material well-being. So when we look at measurements of economic inequality, we try to put together these various aspects. But here I want to focus on another dimension of economic inequality that is not so well known, not so much talked about, but also relevant. And this is inequality in uncertainty about future income. By the way, I'm going to use, for the purposes of this talk, the words uncertainty and risk as the same way. This dimension of inequality matters because a secure income flow provides more well-being than an uncertain income flow, even if in expected terms the two are the same. And not only that, inequality of income risk may either mitigate or exacerbate income inequality, depending on how this income risk varies by income level. If it is the income rich that have risky incomes, this is kind of a compensating factor to overall income inequality, but it is the opposite. If it is the income poor who bear the higher risks. That's one consideration. Another consideration is that expectations and more generally uncertainty about future incomes, these are key to understanding economic choices. In economics, you look at textbooks, at formal presentations, and often there is an emphasis on preferences. But truth is that most decisions involve uncertainty. And when this is the case, decisions may be shaped as much or more by expectations as by preferences. So we want to know about the form of uncertainty, the form of expectations, also because by knowing, understanding those, we have a better understanding of how people will make their choices. And this is certainly critical for modeling behavior and for policy analysis based on those modeling exercises. Specifically, income expectations are particularly central for the allocation of current income between consumption and saving, right? If I have a lot of uncertainty about my future income, then I will tend to save more than if I have certainty. Okay, but how do we go about measuring individual income risk? That's the focus of my talk. I want to argue that with rich administrative data and modern prediction techniques, individual income risk can be convincingly measured. Essentially, here we are developing a methodology for constructing measures of individual income risk. And then once we got these individual measures, then we can look at inequality of income risk. In fact, one could argue that measures of this kind could be incorporated in the economic statistics constructed by default by national and international statistical agencies. In the measurements I'm going to discuss, I follow a prediction-based approach that I would not be feasible without the access to continuous administrative records of complete employment histories. And I'm going to do this for my own country, Spain, although the same methodology could be, and it'd be interesting to do so, applied to many other countries. An alternative direct approach to this prediction approach that for which I'm going to show you results would be simply to ask people, right? Ask about subjective probabilistic expectations from surveys. And at the end of my talk, I will come to this, and I will use some results from this alternative route as for comparisons and as a double check of both predictive approaches and subjective expectations approaches. Let me postpone this more detailed description of how we construct measures of income risk to later, and tell you a word as part of this summary of what is that we find for the Spanish economy. The Spanish labor market has been characterized by high level of unemployment rate and large cyclical swings. And inequality of income risk, one would expect to be related to the prevalence of unemployment, but also to the large share of short-term temporary employment that produces high job turnover. That's another aspect of the Spanish labor market. In fact, temporary workers often have a large uncertainty about the numbers of days they will be able to work the following year, while for many permanent workers and public sector employees, this kind of uncertainty is negligible by comparison. Here, I'm going to talk about annual income risk, right? But the data and the methods that I'm going to tell you about would also be useful to look at income risk at shorter or longer horizons. So what does it mean talking about annual income risk, right? So this is, we envisage a person today thinking about how much money is going to make during the following year, right? And the person is maybe a public servant with a very secure job. So that person would have a very precise idea of what her income will be the following year, right? With very little uncertainty. But now if the person is a temporary employee going from one short contract to another, maybe lasting 1 month or 2 months each, and with periods of unemployment in between and uncertainty about what offers will come and what wages will be associated with these offers, then, well, this person will have also an idea of how much money the person can make, accumulate the money they can accumulate during the next year, but with a lot more uncertainty, right? The variability in the range of possible incomes that person may have will be much bigger, right? It is precisely that kind of in annual income risk that we are trying to target. Why annual? Well, annual is a frequency that matters for many decisions that we make, right? I may want to buy a house, right? If I want to buy a house, then I how much income I can make over the next year matters. I want to invest in further education. That's also matter. I am married and I want to have children. That's also kind of decisions. I want to buy some durables. All these kind of plans, right? The amount of risk in our incomes over a year are very central. Would also be central to have income risk measures, say, over 5-year horizons. And for other types of choices, like non-durables, regular purchases, income risk over shorter horizons also matter. Okay. And this is, in a nutshell, what what has been happening in the Spanish economy during the period of observation for the data that I'm going to use here. So this is going from 2005 till 2018. In the middle, there are the twin big crises, right, that affected the Spanish economy. See the real GDP growth rate go below zero, right, going into the negative during these crisis periods, never going beyond 5%. And then the unemployment rate started at about a level of just under 10% before the crisis, and climbed up to nearly 20% after the first crisis, and in excess of 25% after the second, and then since then slowly going down, right, until the still higher levels than the pre-crisis periods in recent years. Main findings, well, the main findings here is that the Spanish economy, a large mass of workers have negligible income risk, and those coexist with many others who anticipate large fluctuations in their next year's income, larger than 10 or 20% of their expected income. Also, since the larger risks concentrate among the lower incomes, income risk inequality amplifies income inequality and increases in downturns, and has most of its impact on the younger population, right? That's my summary of what is coming. I guess this is now a good time to stop for me and see if there are any questions. I'm happy to take questions at any time, but if someone wants to ask something now, this is a good time to do so.
So currently there are no questions from the audience. You are kindly invited to write them in the chat or in the Q&A section.
Very good, very good. Okay.
We have one question from Viraj Shah in India. So
right.
The question is, what is the degree of correlation between income risk inequality and income inequality?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. But you see, to answer that kind of question, I mean, the question is, what is the degree of correlation between income risk inequality and income inequality? For this, we would need data on multiple economies, right? Say we take a measure of income inequality, the Gini coefficient, or a measure of income dispersion. And then we take a measure of income risk inequality of the kind that I'm going to discuss here. And then if we got these measures for many countries, we could correlate them. As far as I know, this is the first time this kind of exercise is being done. It's been done as part of Global Income Dynamics Network that is being produced internationally. So I hope that what we are doing for Spain, it will be replicated for other countries. At some point, we'll be able to calculate correlations like Viraj is thinking about. But this is not something that we can do. What we can do, and that is will be an important result in this presentation, is people with high levels of income risk, whether these are people with high incomes or people with low incomes. That we can do, that kind of correlation we can produce, right? And the correlation is high. You will see graphically how high it is, right? But this is not correlation between the inequalities, but correlation between incomes and income risks, okay? That's an important difference.
Thank you, Viraj, for the question.
Yeah. Pranjal has another question. Pranjal is asking, when we look at income risk inequality, don't you think there is a correlation between high risk jobs and uncertain jobs? Aren't they very highly correlated? Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned already that temporary short-term jobs are behind some of the results that we have here, and that there are a variety of factors that determine income risk and income risk inequality, right? And the perspective that I want to adopt here is to abstract from the particular factors behind this and consider the risk itself and how it varies for different people, okay? Yeah, but yeah, they are highly correlated. In fact, the main correlate between the income risk measures that we have here and the and individual factors is number of days worked in the year. There is another question about gender, and that's a great question. In our analysis, we are looking both at male and female, so we can look at gender differences. A serious analysis of gender gaps in income risk is yet to be done, and this is complicated by the fact that the patterns of labor force participation are different across genders, and one has to integrate an analysis of those with the analysis of the gaps themselves. Diego has a normative question. What is a good way to reduce income risk inequality? This is beyond of what my presentation can do, but of course, if I am saying that income risk inequality is associated to youth and to security in the job market, any moves towards reducing dualities between temporary and permanent jobs, one would expect to be a step in this direction. Viraj has another question. Does the automation of jobs play a significant role in the study of income risk inequality? I don't know. I mean, this is not something that on which we have direct data in these sources. I suspect not. I suspect that the automation has not acquired significance as yet in the Spanish labor market to transform the nature of transitions from jobs to jobs and the nature of incomes. Now, let me take one more question. Pranjal is asking, according to your study, is there any relation between the sectors that workers work in and the risk inequality? For example, are manufacturing workers more at risk than those working in services? Yeah, that's another very good question. I mean, it depends on what services these are and what manufacturing industries these are. I mean, I'm going to show you specifically a very revealing picture about civil service jobs, right? In civil service jobs, because of the nature of civil service contracts and labor relations in Spain, the security is its maximum, right? But then in other sectors, this is not an analysis that we have formally done, but of course it's going to depend on the prevalence of temporary employment across sectors of the economy. I would not expect very large differences, because when you do a sectoral analysis of the kind I was mentioning, then the temporary employment is very present across sectors. Variability is more across firms than across sectors. So an added interest to your question would be to follow it up, looking at beyond sectors, going into firms of different characteristics, like size, age, the type of technological development they do, the way they care about their workers, and so on and so forth. Great. So these were very nice questions. So we have another 30 minutes to put some flesh into the summary I gave you. So let's go for it. I mean, the presentation has more detail than I want or I will be able to cover, but I will be happy to make the presentation available to anyone interested in the detail. An important thing in this analysis is the data, and then another important thing is how we measure income risk. And the third important thing is the results, right? And maybe the fourth important thing is what is that we do to make sure that the results that we get are robust and credible, right? Okay, so let's go for it. The data. The data that we use is not survey data, it is administrative records, right? The main data set is social security employment histories, right? Which are matched to income tax and census records for a 4% sample of the Spanish population of Social Security affiliates from 2005 to 2018. Okay, ideally, we would like to have not a 4% sample. We would like to have the universe, right? All social security affiliates. This is something that in Spain we still cannot do, but hopefully researchers will be able to access in this type of data in the not so distant future, as it is the case in some other countries. Let me tell you a word about this type of data more generally. Right? In the second half of the 20th century, I mean, the big development in economics and in the social sciences more generally was access to surveys, right? Surveys conducted for the purpose of social research. In the first half of the first quarter, for sure, of this century, I mean, the action has shifted towards administrative data sets. Administrative records have been in existence as long as there has been civilization, right? In fact, written language was not created for the purpose of literature or poetry. It was created for record keeping. The oldest registers that we have are these Sumerian tablets. So what is new in that? Well, what is new is that this mass of data now appears in digital form, right? So it is now feasible because of the digital and computer technologies to use this data for research, in addition to the use for which they were initially intended, which was record keeping, right? In the case of Social Security, well, the record keeping is essential, right, for Social Security administrations to know what benefits workers are entitled to depending on regulations and their employment histories, right? And same with income tax and census records. Okay. This is in Spanish called the Muestra Continua de Vidas Laborales, hence this MCVL acronym. In fact, it's been around for a longer period, but we only started in 2005 because the matching with income tax records and therefore individual incomes without top and bottom codings is only available from 2005. The data sets have some limitations, but for the purposes of our research, these are great. The first, by way of descriptives, let me give you some figures around the individual income measure that has been used in this international network I was telling you about. This is for the population age 25-55, that this is for salaried work, no self-employment here, and for people with a sufficient attachment to the labor market, right? Those with earnings from working part-time for 1 quarter at the minimum wage or below that are not included here. And this is only for males. In our paper, we do an analysis for males and females, but since here the income risk, I'm only looking for males for comparisons. This is what I'm showing you. And you can see what, let me tell you what this figure 3 is. See, this is percentiles, right, relative to the beginning of the period, 2005, right? So this one that goes down, right, the diamonds, this is the bottom 10th percentile of the distribution, right? So this is the people that are whose incomes are at the bottom of the distribution. Only 10% of people earn less than those people, right? And what you can see is that this bottom 10 percentile fluctuates quite a bit with the recessions. And same is true for the 25 percentile, but from the median onwards, you see there is no much change. And when you go to the top of the distribution, right, and you look at 90, 95, 99, 95, 99.5, not much action, right? You see the very little business cycle fluctuations in this distribution of individual income from the median onwards. So when we calculate measures of dispersion, right, this is the blue one. This one is the standard deviation. We see that that dispersion increases with the recessions. The other one is a different measure of dispersion, not the standard deviation, just the difference between the P90 and the P10. And it's doing very much the same. But this is the standard measures of dispersion, but here it's somewhat deceptive because all the action is in the lower part of the distribution. So if I look at the figure to the right, you see the P90, P50 is flat, no variability, whereas the P50, P10, it varies quite a bit, right? So there is dispersion, but the dispersion is it's just in lower inequality. And now this is looking at changes in income, and the negative changes happens more during the recessions. And this is also shown in the measures of dispersion. I'm moving quickly here because I don't want to take too much time on this, but see the skewness is also, the distribution is shifted towards the left side, right, during the recession, and the kurtosis is thickness of the distribution increases during the recessions. And then when you look at the distributions by age, you see the red line is 25-34, the blue one 35-44, and so on. Well, the inequality decreases with age. And then in the horizontal axis, we put permanent income. This is average income over the past 3 years. In this dispersion of shocks, of changes in incomes also increases with age. Okay, so let us go to the main part of my talk. I told you that I want to construct an individual measure of income risk following a predictive approach. And so what are the predictors that I know? Well, I know the income this is more than 4 million people here, of these individuals in the past employment, type of labor contract, demographics, a bunch of things, right? But since this is continuous records, I know things not every year or every month. I know these things continuously. I know how many days someone has been employed and what type of contract, right? And I also have macro predictors, how the economy is doing, both at the national level and at the provincial level, GDP growth, unemployment rate, and so on. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I want to use a broader measure of income, right, than we had before. I want to include those that have, say, no income in a particular year, but maybe have unemployment benefits the recorded, right? So that's a measure trying to get closer to what would be a measure of disposable income for those people. And what is the measure that I want to use? It's a coefficient of variation. So I'm not expecting you to know what a coefficient of variation is, even if it is something that is standard in statistics, but it is the following. It is a ratio in which in the denominator I put mean income for individual of certain characteristics. The y here is income and the x is characteristics. So this denominator could be what the mean income for an individual age 31, who male or female, who has living in a certain part of the country, rural or urban or large or small, and under certain economic conditions, recession, expansion, unemployment rate increasing, decreasing, a person who has worked, say, 3 different jobs during the past 5 years, and that has been unemployed for so many days, and is working in a particular industry or some other industries. So this X is notation inclusive of all this variety, right? For a person with these characteristics, the denominator is the mean of this, and the numerator, that's the key, is the mean absolute deviation, right? Of income with respect to that mean in the denominator for a person with the same characteristics, right? So what is this measuring? In words, say an individual with an expected income of 20,000 euros, that could be the denominator, and a coefficient of variation of 10%, so 0.1, then we can say this individual expects a deviation of her next year's income from its mean of plus minus 2,000 euros. Okay, so this is what this means, right? It can be related to other measures. It can be related to the welfare cost, right, of income risk. For those of you that are into have learned more about form of preferences and with power utility, and a coefficient of risk aversion of unity, the welfare gain from eliminating risk is essentially something that we can approximate with the square of this coefficient of variation, right? If if there are minimum needs or subsistence needs, then it is no longer the case, right? If you are close to subsistence, then the coefficient of variation is underestimating the welfare gain from eliminating risk, right? And that's a consideration to take into account. Now, how it is that we do this? We got all these thousands of observations in this very large data set. Well, we need to approximate the mean income for individuals with different texts. We use regressions. We need to approximate the expected deviations for these people. We use another round of regressions. So we are using regression techniques, right, to get this individual numerator and denominator of our coefficients of variation. Before I show you some results, what could go wrong with a measure like this? Three types of things could go wrong. One thing that could go wrong is that that people, when assessing their income risk 1 year ahead, they have more information than the excess we as analysts have, right? That is something that could go wrong. Another thing that could go wrong is that even if people have the same information, essentially the same information 1 year ahead as we have, our regressions are not using this information as well as we could, right? So we are using the best possible predictors. And thirdly, another possibility would be that that people, in fact, they are not assessing their risk according to an easy prediction exercise. They are forming subjective expectations in a different way, right? Related to their psychology or other behavioral aspects that cannot be captured with statistical prediction exercise like those. So what is that we do about these three threats to our calculations? First, in terms of addressing the possibility that even if our X's are okay, regressions are not, we use modern machine learning techniques. We use what's called neural networks, which is a universal approximator that is very good at capturing improvements on prediction performance relative to parametric regression techniques like those ones. In terms of addressing the fact that maybe individuals know more than the X's know, well, we resort to classification techniques, right? We classify individuals into groups, and we add those groups as additional predictors, right? Using techniques called k-means. This is another technique in the machine learning toolkit. And thirdly, to address the difficulty that maybe people form subjective expectation in different ways, well, we go to a different data set that is very different to the one we are using, but refers to similar questions, which people are directly asked about their subjective expectations and compare. So this is the things that we do. Here I explain a word about these neural networks. This will be in my presentation, those interested in going to it. Then we classify individuals into latent groups. The second extension that with this group fixed effects, and that is technical. We don't want to do the detail of this here, but this in the presentation for those interested in the detail. And then the results. This is a table I wanted to show you. These are our main results, and they are the main results from our baseline parametric calculations, because it turned out that both neural networks and the classification exercises did not change quantitatively, right? Qualitatively for sure, but even quantitatively, in particular, the case of the neural networks, the results that we got here. See, you can see this is the median income risk. See, it's around 11%, 12%. This is not a large for someone according to the welfare calculation, right? For someone in any part of the distribution. But you could say that this is a large risk for someone at the bottom of the distribution if there are minimum consumption needs. In any case, these medians do not vary, do not vary much over time. But when we go to the high risk, to the P90, situation is very different. You see, this risk is astronomical, 0.79, right? The P50 is six times the risk of the median person, right? And these risks do fluctuate quite a bit over the business cycle, right? They were about 40%, 45%, and going to a staggering 93% in 2014, and then back going down again in the recent years, right? So what we have is relatively low median risk, very low risks at the bottom of the distribution of risks, very high risks at the top, and it is the high risk that fluctuate. And this is showing the same in pictures in this table. When you do the analysis by age, you can see that the risks are concentrated among the young. This is P50-50 is median for the young relative to the overall median. So for 25-year-olds, the risk is more than 2.5 times the risk for the median person in the full population. For 55-year-olds is the same, and for 50 and 55-year-olds is 3 years. Right, so there is this kind of fluctuation. This is information in a figure. When we look at risk by percentiles of the income distribution, this is what you've got at the bottom. See that the high risk are at the bottom of the income distribution, median, and at all different percentiles. And when you get persistence in income risk, comparing percentiles of the coefficient variation in 2 consecutive years, well, there is a lot of persistence, right? At low risk, and less so, there is this fanning out at risk. The extension robustness checks, the neural network risk is very much the same. The cut the correlation between the with group fixed effects, and here the correlation is not so perfect. So these group fixed effects, they do add something, but still we have very similar distribution of income risks as we had from the line model. And this one is the distribution of risk for civil servants, for the funcionarios in Spain. You see no risk, no variation over the business cycle. To conclude, subjective expectations. Now, this is a wild exercise that we did at the end. We went to a very different asset, the Spanish Survey of Household Finances. This is conducted by Bank of Spain, and they do have a question. They ask households. There is households, not people, but nevertheless, they ask them. We give you 10 balls. Please distribute these 10 balls across 5 different possible scenarios about the change in your income over the following year. One possibility is very little change in your income, that your income is no less, no bigger, 2% of what is this year. Another is small increase between 2 and 10%. Another is a small decrease between 2 and minus 10%. And the last two, a big increase, more than 10%, and a large decrease, less than 10%, right? So the result of asking people these questions is that for each household in the survey, we have like a histogram of what their subjective appreciation of risk or uncertainty in income next year be, right? From each of these individual histograms, we calculate a dispersion. So this is an alternative measure of dispersion that we can get to the ones that we had based on our prediction approach. And this is the distribution that you get is qualitatively, despite the differences in method, qualitatively very similar to the one we got from these much bigger administrative data sets using the prediction approach. And again, we also observe the same main characteristics, that the higher risk happens at younger ages, and also the higher risks appear at lower income. And that's the end of my talk. Key findings: income risk is more unequal and higher on average among the young. Inequality of income risk increases during generations. Risk decreases with income, and lower levels of risk are persistent than higher levels of risk, right? So I can conclude income inequality matters, of course, but inequality of income also does. And that's something that is a key feature of the Spanish. The Spanish economy has a labor market with some idiosyncratic characteristics that can influence those results, but precisely because of this big interest to document those characteristics in other settings. Thank you. So let's see if we can probably have a question. The question is, what do you think explains the fact that income risk increases with age? Given a fixed job or occupation, don't you think the income risk should say no matter the age? A temporary worker who is 40 years old and who is 25 would have the same income risk, since we are not looking at accumulated wealth, only the income the person earns. Would love your interpretation of this aspect of value. That's a very good question. See, if I were to condition, I mean, what Pranjal had in mind is taking, say, this prediction exercise and comparing to a more structural exercise and, say, fixing being temporary and then change age, and looking at how risk varies with. We are not trying to do this, right? Because we are not giving a coarse structural interpretation to our predictors. That would be much more ambitious than we do. I mean, the answer to your question is that as people become older, people transition from less stable jobs to stable jobs, right? For older people, sometimes the opposite happens, right? After having had a fairly secure job for maybe 20 years, then this secure goes, and then these older people cannot transition to another secure job, starts a sequence of more temporary jobs, and insecurity increases back again, right? We see some of this, but not quite a lot. The main reason why the risks are for the young is because of instability associated with, right, at those ages. Precisely this, it will be very interesting. It is something that is in our to-do list, is to calculate income risk over a 5-year horizon or even a 10-year horizon, which is what we can do with this data set. Maybe our younger workers in the Spanish economy are not as concerned about this phenomenal income risk as those, because they expect that over a 5-year period these risks will be much more, or maybe they just lack enough information. That is great questions. Any questions?
Thank you, Manuel. We have one question from Sviatoslav Gladyshev. He asks, why did the risk not change during the 2008 crisis? He's referring to the slide 35.
Okay. Let's go back.
There was this table. Oh, sorry, before that. There will this, yes, this one. Yeah, 34 then. Yeah.
Yes. Good point. See, the risks are on the increase. Well, I mean, the information here and the information here. So you can see that the 2 points here. 1 point is that the risk is not changing at all for the upper part of the distribution, right? From the end onwards, there is no change in risk. The change in the risk is happening in the sorry, I'm saying the upper part, but since now I'm talking about the distribution of risk, I should say the lower part of risk, right? It's the upper part of risk, that P9, P75, where the risks are increasing. And the second comment, I guess this is what the question was about. Why it is increasing? Well, it is increasing in the first of the twin crises, right? It is increasing here. But it increasing much more during the second part or the second twin crisis, right? The increase in the first part was probably associated with destruction of temporary employment, but during the crisis, this destruction was much widespread and included only temporary employment, but also permanent employment, right? Yeah. So yes, it is increasing. It is increasing more here than here, but it's only increasing for the high risks. Any other questions?
So we see there are no further questions. We're a bit over time. We would like to thank you, Manuel Arellano, once again for the lecture Income Risk Inequality. So thank you, Manuel. And we wish all the participants a good day. Good day to you too, Manuel, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.